Real quick, I'm going to cover a topic many of you may have heard already. It's shame and honor. Eastern honor versus Western honor. Has anybody studied this before? Maybe in mobilization? They cover, it's probably a real quick class mixed in between the 240 range and, okay. Alright, well we're just going to cover it real quick. Okay, I'm not going to cover all that. Okay, briefly. Eastern honor versus Western honor. Eastern honor, it's all external, right? If I was to operate on Eastern honor, it wouldn't matter what kind of a person I am. All that matters is that everybody seated here thinks I'm a good person. If everyone around you thinks you're a good person, you are a good person. That's Eastern honor. It's the same as the Japanese samurai. Western honor, our honor code, is actually the opposite of it. It's internal, all internal based, right? We see TV shows about it all the time. It doesn't matter what others think about you, as long as you think good about yourself, that's all that matters, right? An example of this, let's say you're driving down the road, you're in the States, and it's midnight, and you come up to a red light, and you look around and nobody's really there. Well, most Americans operating on a Western honor code would just wait for the light to turn green. It takes 30 seconds, most of us will. If an Easterner was put in that same situation, they would most likely run the red light. Why? Because nobody saw what they did, they hadn't lost any honor, they hadn't gained any shame, they're fine. It's the same reason why you can have Saudi Arabian princes fly to Vegas for a weekend, do whatever they want, and literally what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. They can come back, they have their family unit, their social circles, and everything's fine. I'm not here to say which one is right, which one is wrong, but understanding the honor code for Eastern culture is the bedrock of their society. It's the bedrock. Everything they do operates off of, it's almost like a scale. You have honor and shame. Are they gaining more honor or are they gaining more shame? Every decision they do is based off this honor code. We have to understand this principle when working with the locals. Okay, so, and again, this is all about the 98%. When working with an Arab, never shame him in public. If you do, you've made an enemy for a very long time. And I'll tell you a story in a minute of how, well, one of the stories I have where I've made an enemy. But if you do have to criticize, if you have to criticize somebody for whatever reason, make sure it's indirect, include some praises first, and never publicly criticize. This is where we would take the men into a separate room to talk to them if we have to really get those questions asked. Don't do it in front of the families. That's, of course, if they're not confirmed 2%ers. An example of this, let's say you walk up on a friend, he's changing a car tire, and you say, Abdul, you're doing a great job changing that tire. It's a praise. You're one of the strongest men I know to do this job. Praise. You're one of the best mechanics in the city. Praise. Now the indirect criticism. Abdul, it may help if you jack the car up off the ground before you change the tire. Right? I know it sounds ridiculous to us because we operate on a different honor code. But we must understand this concept when working with Arabs. Okay, now am I saying by this slide that we have to give every man in Mosul a man kiss and we have to give every child a beanie baby? No, I'm not saying that. We're operating, our army operates off of counterinsurgency principles. We're fighting an insurgency, so we operate off of counterinsurgency principles. And one of those principles are that we pursue the enemy relentlessly, we grab a hold of the jugular, and we don't let go. We always stay one step ahead of the enemy. We never give them ground. But the opposite side to that, the other mask that we have to wear, is that the Iraqi people, they are the terrain that we have to win. They're the key terrain. We have to decide which mask to wear, how to gain passive support while killing the insurgency. Okay, so how do we restore honor if it's been broken? That may be a little bit more difficult. In American culture, it's very easy. If somebody shames you, let's say it's a minor offense, they come up later and they apologize, right? And it's actually considered rude in our culture if we don't forgive a minor offense. However, restoring honor in Eastern Honor Code is much more difficult. This is a photo from the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Brief history: it was little itty-bitty Israel against all the Arab states around it. All of them. Jordan, Syria, Egypt, Iraqi Air Force, they were all attacking Israel. And Israel ended up winning the war. It was actually a crushing defeat for the Arab states. Actually an annihilation. Egypt lost its entire Air Force still sitting on the runways. They lost entire tank divisions in the Sinai. It was a crushing blow. But remember, what concept are they operating off of? What honor code? Is it our honor code? No, it's Eastern Honor Code. So what are they going to print in their newspapers? Are they going to print that they lost the war? No. In the Lebanese newspaper, they print this: we have won, we have won, even if our cities are turned into ruins in the weeks ahead. Again, I'm not here to say which is right and wrong, but guys, grasp this concept. If you get nothing else from this briefing, understand Eastern Honor Code. The time frame I have here of 40 years, that's a very extreme case, but that is the rough time frame it takes for somebody to forgive a shaming when their family's been shamed. Why? Because the man's going to hold on to that shame the rest of his life. And he's going to constantly tell his kids about it, so his kids are going to know the father's shame. Hopefully by his children's children, they will have forgiven the shame, or forgotten it, or not cared, or whatever it may be. That's a severe case. Here's an example. I was studying at a very small international university in the German Alps, and I was in the middle of an Iraqi dialect course. And I'm in there, it's the morning, and I'm with my instructor and the 7 other students, and we're reading through the daily events. And I get about halfway through, and this joke comes to mind. I shoot out the one-liner. Hilarious, right? The Brits are laughing, Americans are laughing, I'm laughing. Funny joke in our culture. My teacher, though, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had offended his national honor, and it was in public. And it was he was an instructor in the class, so it was like me shaming kind of my superior. He slammed his fist on the table. He cursed me out in Arabic for a while. He kicked me out of the classroom for the rest of the day. I tried to restore, I know what question you're going to ask. You're going to ask me after this. I tried to restore that friendship and was unable to for the rest of the course. That was a 5-second comment, you guys, that I made, and I lost that friendship with that instructor. 5 seconds. How many times have we shamed Arabs needlessly in Iraq, and how has that affected our mission? You guys, we have been in Iraq for 5 years. 5 years. Those teenagers I was telling you about in Tikrit, they'd be what, 21, 22 now. I think, where are those guys? What are they doing? Are they fighting with the IA to unite Iraq? Or are they working for some cell? Angry at America, angry at coalition forces? I don't know. I know this, though, I lost my instructor's friendship in 5 seconds with a 5-second comment. And I can almost guarantee that we lost the support of those young men with that 5-minute interaction we had with them. Again, we've been in Iraq for 5 years. How many times have we needlessly shamed Arabs, and how has that affected the mission? I don't have the answer to that question. It's just something to think about. So, 2 more slides. Just about done. It's getting hot in here. So, when is it too close for comfort?
Right there.
Right there, I heard. Okay, depends on your cultural awareness level. The answer to that question does. If we're operating at the unconscious incompetence level, everything is too close and nothing is comfortable. However, as we move up in cultural awareness levels, scenes like this are commonplace. And they're actually necessary for mission accomplishment. They're necessary? Yes. Here's why. Read this quote. We must defeat the insurgent by means of a strategy of inoculation, organizing our forces into small, cellular, offensive antibodies that vaccinate the local populace against the insurgent. We're already starting to do that. We've got cops going up all over the city. We're starting to live amongst the populace, ready to react if something goes wrong. We're living with our IA counterparts, working side by side. But you guys, each of you are a cellular offensive antibody that vaccinates against the insurgent with every interaction you have with the local populace. Every time. We're either gaining passive support or we're losing it. There's no middle ground. Every interaction you have. Okay. In conclusion, what do? Bury yourself in Arab circles. Have no ideas and no interests except for the work at hand. What's the work at hand? The most difficult job in Iraq. We have to wear 2 masks. We have to kill the insurgency while winning over passive support. So that your brain is saturated with one thing only, and you realize your part deeply enough to avoid the little slips that would counteract the painful work of weeks. The little slips that would counteract the painful work of weeks. All of you guys have heard about the Quran shooting recently? This briefing was not about, it didn't spin off of that, but recently there in southern Iraq, there was a Quran that was taken to a range by U.S. forces. It was shot up. About a week and a half later, the IA counterparts came to that same range to shoot in a joint range. They found the Quran. It was an international incident. President Bush had to call Prime Minister Maliki and apologize himself. That was a little slip that counteracted the painful work of weeks. I don't know how long it took those American officers down there to develop those relationships with the IA officers. But if you read the reports, if you read Stars and Stripes, that relationship is completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. The little slips that counteract the painful work of weeks. Okay, so what's the takeaway from this briefing? The end of the quote. Your success will be proportioned to the amount of mental effort you devote to it. Your success is proportioned to the amount of mental effort that you devote to it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I'll tell you after. Okay. Nothing, questions, comments, anything you guys want to ask besides that one question? Nothing? Okay. Okay, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for your time.